everybody. Welcome back to the Coaches from the Couch podcast, where we like to talk sports, play games, and do our best to have a good time. We're going to be talking about some NFL today, but before we do that, I'd like to kind of touch on some of the NBA news that's happened recently. We have gotten past the draft, but now we got some free agency coming up. Actually, Friday. We're filming this on Thursday.
Yep.
Free agency
Friday.
starts Friday. So, what have you been hearing?
So, first player I want to start off with is a big player for the LA Lakers. I want to talk about Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves, obviously, the Lakers are planning to match anything that Austin Reeves is getting. So I thought that's fascinating. What do you think about that? That's a max contract. What if somebody offers a max contract? That's crazy to hear that the Lakers are going to offer the same thing.
Well, I don't think he's going to be getting a max contract. That's a little bit insane. What's the average this year, like 10 points or something?
I think it was like 15.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe for his career it's 10 points.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know. I think that could end up being a mistake, in my opinion. I think Austin Reeves had some really cool moments, some really big shots in the regular season and the playoffs both. I think he's a great player. But that being said, he to me seems like a guy that would not pay off in the end. Like it would be one of those contracts that you kind of look back at and it wasn't really worth it in the end. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yes, and then your Boston Celtics, Brad Stevens came out and said he's actively exploring trade opportunities. As a Celtics fan, you've been so close so many years, or for the past 2 years, 3 years really. What do you think you guys need? You got Kristaps Porzingis. What do you think you need as a Celtics fan? What do you think you need? Obviously, you have Jaylen Brown also as I think he's a free agent, right? Or he has 1 year left on his deal. But you're looking at extending him. That's money. And then obviously you got Grant Williams out of town most likely. What do you like? What's your groove right now? What do you think?
Well, we are pretty low on money, so there's not a whole lot of options out there. But for me personally, I think even with the addition of Porzingis, I think we still need another big man. Just with the nature of injuries, you can always use another one. Any team could. But I would also like to see us bring in a guy like Josh Richardson, who we had a couple years ago. I really liked how he meshed with our team. I thought he fit really well. The guys liked him. I'd like to bring a guy like that back. But yeah, I don't think we have a whole lot of options. We kind of just have to take what's out there. Because I would see us maybe doing a sign and trade with Grant Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a crazy return coming back off of that. I don't know about you.
Yeah. And then obviously the Houston Rockets, there's a lot of talk about them, who they're going to be getting in the free agency. Fred VanVleet's been the name thrown around. Fred VanVleet to the Rockets. What do you think about it? I'm not a big Fred VanVleet fan because of his size. I think he lacks defense, but he can shoot the crap out of the ball. And very good offensive player, but defense, I think it hurts. But, as the Rockets, any chance you have to go out and get a guy like Fred VanVleet, I think you got to.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I actually think he's a better defender than given credit for. He's a solid, serviceable defender. He's not locked down by any means, but he can hold his own, I think. And if you're talking about a Houston Rockets team that just needs any kind of experience or leadership at all, heck yeah, you take Fred VanVleet. He's an experienced guy. He's won a championship, correct? I think, right?
Who is it?
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, he won with Lowry
with
and Kawhi.
Kawhi, yeah. So yeah, you definitely want that championship pedigree and just a guy that could go out there and on the Rockets team, he could probably score 20 points a game. I'd take him on.
Heck,
they have all the money in the world. So
yeah, I was saying.
Why not?
And he can make the bank there. And staying with the Rockets, obviously, Kenyon Martin signs a $1.9 million team option. I think that's a good fit for them, especially when you can get these little pieces. That's $1.9 million, which ain't that much at all. When you get a guy like Kenyon Martin Jr. for $1.9 million, and you can go out and get some more stars when you're filling out those roster spots. So I think Kenyon Martin's a good keep. Bruce Brown, his name been thrown around to a couple places. Lakers are confident that they're going to be getting Bruce Brown. And I'll touch on Bruce Brown more later, but so we'll get on Bruce Brown here in a second. But Lakers are confident on Bruce Brown. Another interesting guy is Chris Middleton. His name's been thrown around to the Pacers, been thrown around back to the Bucks. As a Pacer fan, would you want Chris Middleton?
I would, because I think a lot of teams are super scared of him just because he hasn't been around like the past 2 postseasons, right? I think he's been injured, so that's definitely concerning. But if you're talking about a team like the Pacers, there's not really many guys that we can go out and get that bring the opportunity to bring us to a championship level team. And I'm not saying Chris Middleton's that good, but I think he's definitely
He's a former All-Star.
Yeah,
too,
and he's a lot better than a guy that we were just talking about before, and like a Harrison Barnes or somebody. I'd way rather take a chance on Chris Middleton than Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, and then so moving on to the next players, we got Andre Drummond staying with the Bulls. I think smart decision. I know they extended Vucevic as well. I didn't really agree with the extension of Vucevic, but I mean it is what it is. I think Chicago right now is still trying to find their ground. I think they're trying with Levine leaving, most likely DeMar leaving. I think Chicago's kind of right now trying to figure out their self. So I think Chicago getting Drummond's a smart play there. Jordan Clarkson staying with the Jazz. I think it's $14.3 million, but the Jazz have a lot of money. I think Jordan Clarkson is one of the best creating off the dribble for his own shot. I think he's very underrated. I think Jordan Clarkson's a good fit to stay in Jazz. I think he had good flashes with the Jazz, and I think it's smart of Utah to bring him back.
Yeah, I really like what Utah's doing. And speaking of Fred VanVleet, I think that would be a good fit for him. What do you think?
Yeah, Fred VanVleet to the Jazz, because I think the Jazz, obviously, they have a lot of length. So with him having a small point guard, it wouldn't hurt you as much because you can help a lot more with your length and your size. So I think that would be a good fit for him as well.
Yeah, just needing another guard. They have so much length in the front court with, Markkanen, Kessler, and Jenkins. Is that his name, Jenkins? The one they just drafted.
Oh, Taylor Jenkins?
Taylor Jenkins, yeah.
Or Hendricks.
Hendricks,
yeah.
I don't know who Taylor Jenkins is, but...
Yeah, Taylor Hendricks, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Taylor Hendricks. So they got a lot of really good length in the front court. They just probably need some more guard play. I think VanVleet would fit pretty good there.
Yep, and then Knicks are looking at, obviously I heard they're talking about James Harden. I heard Harden is accepting his player option to the Sixers, but I think it's going to be a sign and trade. So that is interesting. Knicks are in the talk. I believe Heat are in the talk. We'll talk. I just think James Harden's always, anytime James Harden's name's out there, obviously it's a big headline just because he's been an MVP in the league, and he's a high level player.
They can happen.
Exactly.
I don't want him.
Exactly.
Keep him away from my team.
And then talking about the Knicks, they're talking about trading quickly for a very good player in his prime. So I think that is a little insane. Quickly is good. I'm a Kentucky fan, but I just don't know if I don't know if he's worth a good player in the prime. He's not that good, but I think he's a solid player. I think he can make a team better, but I don't know if he's worth giving up a player in their prime for.
Yeah, I'd like to see what some NBA GMs think about that.
Yeah.
We'll give you Emmanuel quickly for your star player. I don't think they would take that.
And then another fascinating story is the Kyrie. Kyrie is planning to meet with the Phoenix Suns. And obviously, the only other team that was involved with them for the longest time was the Dallas Mavericks. And I just don't know if I like him going to the Phoenix Suns. If he does end up going there, I just think obviously he'd have to take a contract like the DeMarcus Cousins contract at the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, if you're Phoenix, you're for it. Yeah, you get Kyrie Irving on a vet min deal, heck yeah. But for Kyrie's sake and for the team's sake for Phoenix, I don't think it'd fit right. Kind of like the same thing that happened in the Nets. It didn't really work out there. About too much star power. On paper, they'd probably have one of the top 10 starting 5 lineups of all time. But can they play together? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's almost like they don't really know what game they're playing. Because, what's that roster going to be good for? An all-star game? They'd probably be good in NBA 2K. But they're not going to win a championship with that kind of roster. You got DeAndre Ayton, who can't be on the floor in the big moments. Can't guard anybody. You don't have any role players. I just don't really get what they're doing. They got, 75% of their money spent on 4 guys? Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with what the Suns are doing.
Yeah, me either. And then Lakers waive Mo Bamba, which I think is kind of fascinating because he's a young center. I think he has a lot of talent. He hasn't really got much opportunity in this league, so I wouldn't mind. Obviously, Pacers have a young center as well, Isaiah Jackson off the bench, but honestly, I wouldn't mind getting Mo Bamba in free agency if he's cheap. He's young, tall, athletic, can shoot. Why not?
I'd love for the Celtics to pick him up.
Yeah, and that's another. Yeah, the Celtics would be a good fit as well. And then another fascinating story out of the free agency world so far. how Terian Prince from Baylor and Minnesota, how he actually heard from Wojbaum, how he actually, that's how he learned that he actually did not get to another year on his contract with Minnesota, is because of Wojbaum. So I thought that was pretty funny how the team didn't even tell him. He actually learned from Wojbaum.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I think Chris Paul said a similar thing. He learned he got traded while he was on a plane or something.
Yeah, with his kids.
I mean, just I don't know. That just feels kind of
It's a business.
disrespectful to me.
It's a business. They
That-
treat it like one.
I think there definitely needs to be a little bit more transparency there. The players should know first before the media. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, so let's see here. Malik Beasley, Lakers will not pick up his team option, so he is a free agent too from the Lakers. So it looks like the Lakers are trying to get rid of some of these players to make a splash for. Now let's talk about Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown, obviously they feel confident that they're going to get Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is set to meet with the Dallas Mavericks as well. Bruce Brown's one of those players we've talked about. We talked about this since the finals. He's one of those players that any team can use, and I think anybody that gets him, it's like, oh, good pickup. You can't say it's not a bad pickup. You just can't. There's no way you can put it that it's a bad pickup. So I think wherever he goes, but he looks like he's meeting with some teams, and he's going to have a hot free agency. So he deserves the bag, whatever he gets.
Yeah, he's a winning basketball player. Anybody that gets him, they should be happy.
Exactly. And then Josh Hart, I think this is a really key return for the Knicks. Josh Hart is a very underrated player. He's probably their best defender. He is an elite defender. That's why he has a spot in the NBA, because his offense is not that good. But he's an elite defender. Knicks bring him back on a $12.9 million contract. And then Eric Gordon from the Clippers, he has a big contract. They end up actually going separate ways. I think this is smart for the Clippers because he had a big contract. He didn't play not too much minutes until there was injuries later in the year. But I agree with the Clippers getting rid of Eric Gordon. And then we talked about Harden accepting that deal to most likely go elsewhere on a sign and trade. James Harden, I think there's just not a lot of teams that fit him these days. I mean, he's lazy. He's not the same player he was at Houston. He's not the same player he even was at OKC. I think he's losing a step. I really do think that. What do you think about James Harden now?
Yeah, he's just a guy that if you're looking to go really far, you can't have him on your roster because he's at the point in his career where I think he just wants that one last big contract before he can't get another one, and that's what he's just going to get. So I think, honestly, he's probably going to either have to take a pay cut that he's not going to like, or he's going to have to go get big money from a bad team. So that's what's on the table for him, in my opinion.
And then another big free agent, I think one of my favorite, one of my favorite big men, actually one of the most underrated big men in the NBA is Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is a free agent, and the Lakers are targeting Brook Lopez. Actually, I think he played for the Lakers at one point when he was younger. I think Brook Lopez is one of those guys like Bruce Brown, though. I really think he fits anywhere. I mean, it's crazy to think about. Like, he's slow-footed, but he's a good defender. He can still guard the guards. I don't know how he does it. He just knows how to keep his distance and use his wingspan to contest shots. He's an elite defender at the rim. He's a great three-point shooter. I don't know how you don't like Brook Lopez, but I think he's one of the most underrated centers in the league.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And then we have a couple more little stuff we're going to talk about. Harrison Barnes, it says he got an extension with the Kings, so Pacers are out with him, which I'm not mad about because the Kings got him 3 years, $54 million. For the Kings, I think it's a smart decision, though. I mean, they were right there in the playoffs. They were just a couple missed shots away, a couple defensive stops away, and this guy right here is their best defender. Harrison Barnes is their best defender, so I think it's smart to get him back.
Yeah, and they had a great season, too. I think bringing a guy like that back, having that consistency is always good.
Yeah, and then last player I want to talk about is Draymond Green. Draymond Green news, Draymond Green actually had a dinner with Damian Lillard in Portland the other day, which I think is fascinating because a lot of people are saying, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? I think some people have said the Kings, but I think Harrison Barnes getting a deal, I think that knocks him out of going to the Sacramento. Maybe not, but I don't think he will. I think I personally believe he will stay in Golden State. However, if he was to leave, I think another good fit would be the Portland Trailblazers. I think.
That brings us to today's games or fun talk. It's not really games, but kind of dipping our toes back into the NFL. We're going to be answering some burning questions that I think will be fun to answer. The first one would be, who is a team that you expect to take a big leap this season?
Yeah, so my big leap team, I'm going to go with the LA Rams. I think the Rams, obviously they had a bad year last year. They didn't. I know they didn't get a draft pick because they traded like their last 8 years of draft picks for all their good players they got. But I know they don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore. I know they don't have Bobby Wagner anymore. But I think their offense is going to get a lot better with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp being back. Obviously, anytime you can bring back a guy like Cooper Kupp, I think he almost literally won the MVP from a wide receiver position. I think that's insane. Um, and then Cam Akers showed out at the end of the year last year. He started off rough, but then at the end of the year, he showed out to be like, oh crap, this guy can play now. And then they got Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee. Their offensive line's still good. I think the Rams are with their offensive ability. I think they're going to be better. I think they will be a lot better than they were last year, and I think their competition isn't as good as in their division. I mean, you got the Arizona Cardinals who aren't that good anymore because they're kind of in rebuild mode right now. And same thing with I'm not a big believer in Geno this year. I think Geno Smith will fall off a little bit. I don't think he'll have the same season as he did last year for Seattle. But obviously the other team is the 49ers, which they will do good in their division, obviously, just because they're loaded. But I could see the Rams taking the 2 spot over the Seahawks. I could. I'm not going to say it is going to happen, but I definitely could see it.
And my team is the Denver Broncos. They gave up a first-round pick, but they go out, they get a for sure good head coach. They say to heck with Nathaniel Hackett. That was an absolute disaster last season. You bring in Sean Payton. You know, he likes his running backs, like he likes to run a committee backfield. So they bring in Samaje Perine, who I think, as a Bengals fan, looked better than Joe Mixon when he was on the field. So I like that. Javonte Williams is coming off a rough injury, so that's kind of going to suck probably to start the year, but he should get better as the season goes on. You get Tim Patrick back. Jerry Judy's healthy. Cortland Sutton's healthy. And they also draft Marvin Mims, who's a guy I'm really high on out of Oklahoma. They have a second-year tight end, Greg Dulcich, who looked pretty good last year. And their defense was exceptional last year.
Yeah.
So I think they had, kind of like the same vein as the Rams. They were so miserable last year. Mm-hmm. It's not hard for them to take a leap this year. Yeah. And I think they'll be pretty good.
Yeah, and I just think what I have to say about that is I think their offense is definitely going to get better. They were the worst scoring team in the NFL last year, and one of the other worst teams was my Indianapolis Colts. So, I mean, their defense, same thing with the Colts. Their defense, they were number 1 in points per game given up, and same thing. Colts were like number 2 or 3. So I think they're kind of the same boat as the Colts too. I think these two teams, as long as their offense gets better, which it doesn't take much, I think they'll definitely be better.
Yeah. Next question. Who is a player that you think is flying under the radar as a breakout candidate?
So, yeah, my actually flying under the radar player is a guy that I was big on last year. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out who's the one guy in Kansas City. And I think it's going to be I'm not going to say this year, but I think he'll definitely be that 2, maybe the 1. I'm going to go Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore is ready for a good year. I think he had flashes last year. He didn't get much opportunity just because of all the receivers in front of him. But now I think the 1 right now is Kadarius Toney, which everybody knows that he is very injury prone. And so, I mean, and then you got MVS and Justin Watson. So Justin Ross, and they also got that rookie they drafted. What was his name?
just completely blanked his name, but
Yeah.
second round receiver.
Yeah, second round receiver, who has a lot of talent. But I think Sky Moore is like Patrick Mahomes will throw to anybody, and we've seen what he can do with fast people. And I think Sky Moore will fit really well, and I think he'll have a breakout year.
Rashee Rice, that's that
Yes,
receiver's name.
yeah,
Rashee Rice.
and there's a lot of competition there.
I'm going to pivot off that and go with another second-year receiver, which is very interesting, which I think is a good pick. Because if you look back over the past couple of years, a lot of breakout players are those second and third year receivers.
Yeah.
Second and third year for anybody really is your breakout age. So I'm going to go with the second year receiver in Jahan Dotson. When you think about the second year receivers, you hear a lot about Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Drake London, who were first round picks. But a lot of people often forget that Jahan Dotson was also a first round pick. He was a player that was tremendous in college. I mean, blazing speed, very polished route runner. He has a great contested catch ability, actually. He has huge hands. He comes down with the ball. And when he was on the field last year, he was a great route runner. He got open, and he was a touchdown machine. I mean, I think he had 2 touchdowns or something in the first game, or maybe the first 2 games. So he was catching a lot of touchdowns. I just think he's a guy that he's ahead of schedule already, and he has all the talent to break out again this year. I think take another step up. I really like Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick as well.
Next question. Is there a team that you expect to flop this year, meaning not live up to the hyper expectations?
I already kind of said mine. Seahawks. Seahawks, they made the playoffs last year, right? They were wild card. So I think that's my team. I already said them. Then I think Seattle is not going to be the same. I know they got a field general and Bobby Wagner back, which is huge for their defense. But I just don't. I'm not a big believer in Geno, and I know they got Kenneth Walker, which I believe he's coming off an injury. And didn't he have an injury last year, end of the year?
I haven't heard anything about it. He might have.
I think he did. But and then I know they got a lot of receivers still there. They got Lockett, Jackson Smith, Najigba, and DK Metcalf. But I just don't think Geno is not the guy to get you far. He's never been. I think there's a reason for that. He's never been set in stone with a team. There's a reason for it. It's because he can't get you nowhere. And I just don't see that. I see them having a down year because I think teams. This was like rookie Geno to me. I think teams will have more film on him. He doesn't have much film because he didn't play. There's a reason why he didn't play. So I think there'll be more film on Geno, and I think you'll see a bad year from Geno.
See, I don't know. The way I kind of feel about the Seahawks, I'm not the biggest Geno Smith guy in the world either. I mean, there was a reason he was a backup all these years, but he played really well, and I think it's a situation where he doesn't really have to do a whole lot. When you got a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, by the way, is an elite prospect, checks all the boxes. You can just dump off 3-4 yard passes with him, and he's going to break tackles. He'll make plays for you. And then you got 2 excellent deep threats in Lockett and DK Metcalf, who just make plays that nobody else can make. So, and then they have Kenneth Walker, who's a super explosive runner who should be going into his prime as a running back. They draft Zach Charbonnet, who I really like in the draft. And they also get, I think, Devin Witherspoon, a corner, to add to Tariq Woolen, who is amazing last year.
He's come up an injury, too.
So I just think, I don't know, they have a lot of talent over there. I don't know if I'm as low as you are on them, but I could see Geno Smith.
I don't see them making the playoffs. I think a lot of people are saying they're like playoff locked. I'm not.
I'd be higher on them than the Rams. I know that for sure. Me personally.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the Rams are going to have a better season than they did last year.
But anyways, my team would be the Vikings, which I feel like is interesting. Because they have Justin Jefferson, and they draft Jordan Addison. They move on from Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen. They were kind of getting old anyway, so don't really blame them there. But to me, I think it just is one of those things where I could see Kirk Cousins eventually hitting the cliff and falling off. I mean, he's already been kind of that quarterback where, yeah, he's good. He gets the job done. But he's kind of like that quarterback that, like, if you said, do you want the Colts to get Kirk Cousins? You'd be like, I don't really know.
I would take anything last year.
Yeah, over Matt Ryan. But just, he's such a bland quarterback.
And he's worth a lot. I mean,
yeah, he has a huge, like, almost $40 million, I think.
I think it is over 40.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
So, and it just kind of, they don't have a lot of room to go get people. I mean, they have T.J. Hawkinson still. But I don't know. I just think they're a little bit overhyped.
I agree.
Next question. Is there any guys that you are particularly not high on going into this year?
I just said mine again. I'm gonna try to pivot away from the Seahawks.
Pick another guy. There's
Yeah,
got to be more than one guy that
yeah.
you're
No,
on.
there is. All right, let me sit here and think. Here, you go ahead and say yours while I think about mine.
I think the easiest position to be not high on people is running backs with injuries.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy that's very optimistic on running back injuries because over time it's just shown if a torn ACL, they come back the next year and they're never the same. Just because you have to be comfortable and confident when running the football and taking hits. So my guy would be Javonte Williams, who is actually on the team that I really like for this year, the Broncos. But he tore his ACL, MCL, and some other stuff. He tore like 3 different ligaments in his knee, and all reports have shown that he's still having trouble with it. It's still giving him trouble. So I just think he's going to be off to a rocky start this year. So yeah, he's a guy that I'm not too high on.
Yeah, and then so a big position I'm not big on. So this is more, and I'm just they're looking like they're gonna have a better year. But I think the biggest losers, like, what was the exact question again?
Who is a guy that you are not particularly high on?
So there's not. It's not really a guy. It's more of a position. And the position I'm not high on for this team is the Chicago Bears. I'm not high on their running backs. The reason for that is they have a running quarterback in Justin Fields who is a better running back than their running backs. So I think, and this is me saying fantasy purpose. So that's why I'm not pivoting off their talent in just general. I'm pivoting off fantasy. So that's what I'm pivoting mine off. I just don't think they are good, like Chicago running back. I just don't think there's any good Chicago running back right now because of what the so much volume there. I think they have that rookie. What's his name? Johnson, Roshan.
Roshan.
Then they have Deontay Foreman, and then they have Khalil Herbert. So there's so much in the mix there, and they're all about the same mix, like same level right now. I mean, Deontay Foreman had a really good year. Obviously, Johnson's a high prospect running back, and you got Khalil Herbert who had a really good year. So they're just like all on that same level. And then you got Justin Fields who just came off the most rushing yards from a quarterback in a long time. So I don't like Chicago Bears running backs. That is, I don't have a particular player, but all three. I guess you can say all three of them running backs.
This is the last question. What player disappointed you last year that you think could be in for a resurgence?
What player disappointed me this last year? Okay, that's gonna have a good year this year. You can go ahead and say yours. I think about mine.
I think mine's Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's really the past 2 years he's been dealing with injuries, and he finally got that contract he wanted. Greg Roman's out of there. Greg Roman always played the slowest offense ever. Not a whole lot of plays, really slow pace. They bring in Todd Monken from Georgia, who plays really high paced football. Proven winning program there at Georgia, obviously. And they bring in Odell Beckham. They get all the running backs got hurt last year. They get all of them back. Rashad Bateman should be good to go this year. They draft Zay Flowers. Like I said, the contract is settled. So it just seems like a lot of pressure has been kind of taken off of him. He's got a lot more help this year. Obviously, Mark Andrews is still there. That's a safety net. I just think he's got a lot of good going for him going into this year. And I really think I just bet on good talent. And I think he really is as talented as any quarterback in the NFL.
Yep, and then so mine is my boy, my favorite player in the league, Jonathan Taylor. I think he has a bounce back year. I so in my fantasy league, we do $100 for an auction. I paid 50. I think it was $50, right?
48.
48. I paid $48 out of my 50 or out of my 100. So that's equivalent of what is that 96 in a regular league for because most leagues are 200. So that's paying 96 for Jonathan Taylor last year, and I mean he did. I mean he was what's crazy. He was still top 20 running back, but like for his standard last year, he was supposed to be number one, like lock. Um, so I think this year you'll see him back, especially him being on a contract year. He's on a contract talk extension. I think with the running offense we're going to have next year, I think our line gets better. Shane Steichen's offense. I think you'll see Jonathan Taylor back in the top 10 mix for running backs in fantasy this year.
So you're gonna. I want to start off by saying some NFL equivalents to NBA players, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the first player, um, Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry.
So who in the NFL is like the NFL equivalent of Steph Curry?
Huh. I'm gonna have to say Josh Allen. The reason why I say Josh Allen is because he has. I'm comparing the throwing distance. I think he has the strongest arm. I'm comparing it to Curry's range,
Yeah,
and that is why I'm
makes
saying
sense.
Josh Allen because he has the biggest arm in the NFL. What about you?
I can see that. Um, for my guy, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes, though. Another quarterback that has a huge arm. Kind of just changed the way quarterbacks play, in my opinion. Kind of how Steph Curry changed the game of basketball. Obviously, not on the same level, but yeah, just thinking of players in the NFL that can do things that not anybody else can do, like Steph can in basketball. Patrick Mahomes. The next player, Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard. Um, so obviously defensive minded. So I went defensive player. I went Stephon Gilmore. I think they have a lot of the same traits and mindset. Like very humble, don't say very much, and he's a former Colt, former defensive player of the year. Kawhi's former defensive player of the year. I think it fits perfect. I think Stephon Gilmore.
I was kind of thinking the same way when I picked my guy, but I picked Khalil Mack. Like you said about Khalil Mack, and the same way Stephon Gilmore is. Khalil Mack doesn't really talk a whole lot. He's really quiet, but he's still a really intimidating player. He struggled with injuries, much like Kawhi has over the past couple of years. But when he is healthy, no doubt he's one of the best defensive players in the league for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of similarities there. Khalil Mack and Kawhi Leonard. Next player, LeBron James.
LeBron James. LeBron. I went with another defense player. I think he is a leader on every single team he's been on. I think he's only been on two though. But I went Bobby Wagner. I think he's a good game manager. I think he literally controls the whole defense, and he's a winner. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with Seattle, won two, I believe. Won a Super Bowl with the Rams. I mean, I think Bobby Wagner is a perfect fit for LeBron. It's crazy to sound because he is not a top player in the NFL. I'm not, and that's the part that doesn't really make sense. But I feel like Bobby Wagner is like he's always in the contention for the top linebacker. It doesn't matter his age either. That kind of compares to him as well.
I really couldn't think of anybody for LeBron. Like I just don't. I don't think there's anybody in the NFL currently that really deserves that comparison or like should have to live up to LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
So I could only think of Tom Brady. I know he's not in the league anymore, but just the accolades, the intelligence. Yeah, Tom Brady's all I could muster up.
Okay.
Next player, what about Luka Doncic?
So Luka Doncic, I went with a little weird player. I went Matthew Stafford. I think the reason why I see Stafford is I feel like they're both kind of on that same mediocre team. I believe that like without Stafford, without Luka, I feel like the teams aren't what they are though. Because like look, it showed an example with when Luka was hurt. It showed an example when Matthew Stafford was hurt. That the teams aren't very good. I think both are very. I mean, Luka's a little bit more better than Stafford, obviously, but like I feel like their teams are underrated though. I feel like they can be quite on the same level.
I went with Justin Jefferson, and my reasoning for that is because they're both super young players, and at their current paces, they're both on track to be like one of the greatest of all time at their position. And but they've also both of them have not really had the talent around them yet to make deep runs into the playoffs or go for a championship or anything. So yeah, I see a lot of similarities between those two ultra talented players.
Okay.
Next, Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler. I did Aaron Rodgers. I think they kind of have that same mindset. I feel like they can joke around a lot, but they can get serious. And I see that a lot between Jimmy Butler and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm just gonna keep it simple.
To me, Joe Burrow is like the Jimmy Butler of the NFL. Just the swagger about him, kind of really kind of thinking back to that first Super Bowl, that rally he went on was a lot like the playoff run that the Heat had this year, where he just rallied a group of guys that nobody thought would ever be there, and he's just so cool. They're both really cool. So yeah, I think Jimmy Butler and Joe Burrow is a good comparison.
Okay.
Next, Giannis.
Giannis. Um, Giannis, I'm going to say most dominant, so I'm going to say Aaron Donald. I think that's a pretty easy. I don't even have to explain that.
That's I didn't even think about that, but yeah, definitely. Just a guy. Both of them require double teams. You can't really stop them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's great. I said Derrick Henry. I'm kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
When he's healthy, nobody can stop Derrick Henry. He's just a freak. So
Yep.
yeah. But I think Aaron Donald's a better pick. Last one, Kyrie Irving.
So Kyrie, I want Alvin Kamara. I think they both kind of have their stuff off the field. I think when they're both on the field or on the court, they're both shifty. They can both do it all. Power back, running down fast. Same thing with Kyrie. He can finish. He can shoot. I think they're the same type of player off the field, on the court. Same. I think they're the same person.
I went with Aaron Rodgers here. Kind of for the same reason. They're both very spiritual people. Kind of weird. You never know what they're going to say or do. And they're All right, we're back, and we're going to be talking about some baseball. We had a perfect game last night for your Yankees. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, Domingo Herman, man. That you don't. I mean, you don't see that. I mean, the last time that happened was actually I think it was 2012, and it's Felix Hernandez. So let that sink in. That's been a while.
King Felix.
Yep. And I think there was two in 2012, two in 2010, I believe, and then since then there hasn't been one. I mean, yes, hitters have evolved, but I mean, and the A's are really, really bad. But as the as Yankees fans, if you are a Yankees fan, you got to know, like, right now we're taking anything we can get. We don't have Aaron Judge. We haven't had Aaron Judge in a while. So when you play the Athletics, you got to take advantage of it. And Domingo Herman took advantage of it, and he pitched a stellar performance. Defense played well, obviously. He only pitched 96 or 98 pitches in 9 innings. That's crazy good. So that means he was getting a lot of hits, a lot of 1, 2, 3 pitches at bats, and they were making plays in the defense. So give the defense props, and we end up killing them like 10-0. So good job, Yankees. Can't be mad about that.
Yeah, I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're an MLB pitcher facing a high school. A perfect game,
Yeah, exactly.
especially 98 pitches, that is crazy impressive.
Exactly.
Great command and control. People don't know how hard that is. That is insane.
Yeah, because I mean, like, as a professional baseball player, like, that's why when you see pitchers like in the 5th, 6th inning, they give up 2, 3 runs, starting pitchers. It's because they're getting fatigued, and to go that long, and I mean, most pitchers, and that's another thing. Most pitchers in the 5th or 6th inning are at 90 pitches. This dude was at 96 to end the game, so that's what makes it so crazy. And for him to actually get it against a professional baseball team, I don't care who it is, it's crazy.
What a bounce back, too. He got shelled the start before I saw. So, yeah, that's just baseball for you, I guess.
It is, yes.
You never know.
And then I want to talk about another team I want to talk about, obviously, our Cincinnati Reds. So Cincinnati Reds went on a 12-game win streak just last week, lost it to the Atlanta Braves. Yes, you can say the Reds played some weaker teams, but I mean, it's baseball. I mean, you know how hard it is to win 3 games in a row. I don't care who it's the Athletics, the worst team in baseball. It is difficult to do. So we did it against really some tough opponents and some weaker opponents. And then we moved to the Braves. Took the first one against the Braves, where L.A. De La Cruz hit for the cycle, which is unbelievable for that young of a player. And then we ended up actually having to come back that game. It was like 11-7 or something, 11-10. Yeah, it was a crazy game. One of the best games in Reds history. But yeah, that was a good game. Ended up losing the next 2 to the Braves, which, I mean, the Braves are the number 1 ranked team in baseball. Let's not forget that. So I mean, these Reds are ranked number 8. lost to the number one team and took one of them. And then we followed up with the Baltimore Orioles just this past couple 3 days ago. These past 3 days, and lost the first one with crappy weather down there. We had two of the games getting weather delay, um, but the last two we ended up winning. So the Reds ended up taking the series. We've actually won 6 of our last 7 series. So I mean, as a Reds fan, you can't be mad about that.
Yeah. Excitement in this area, local to us in our hometown of Madison. We actually have the regatta this weekend, and I'm so excited for that. That's my favorite event of the year. Just I don't know just seeing everybody. Everybody comes back to town. Such a big event. You can see everybody there. Play some cornhole, get some good food. It's awesome.
It's the way I like to picture it and say how I describe it to people. It's like going to a football tailgate. It's like that, but it's also like putting that together with like going to a NASCAR race. It's going to like a Indy 500 race or something like that. Probably F1 race. It's like has that racing because of the hydroplane boats. And if you don't know what hydroplane boats is, look it up. They're really cool.
200-mile-per-hour boats on the river.
They're the fastest boats in the world.
Yeah.
And they're just so satisfying to watch to see like the rooster tails. Rooster tails shoot up the water. If you don't know what rooster tail is, look it up. You'll see videos of it. It's just so satisfying to watch as they go under the Madison Milton Bridge and just swing through, swish up that water. And there's a crap ton of people that go to Madison Regatta, and it is just a fun time. The atmosphere is fun. Like he said, there's cornhole, there's food vendors, there's so much going on. Fireworks. There used to be a air show, which I wish they'd get back into. Madison, if you're watching this, try to get that back.
I say we have you do it.
The air show.
You can fly a plane, right?
Yeah, I'd try. And there's even helicopter rides. I do know that there is helicopter rides. But it's just a good time. There's music at night on the river. They have actually, who's the band coming?
Blackberry Smoke.
And that's a pretty well-known band.
Southern rock.
Yeah, so like they have people. Like they have a lot of good bands come in. There's different bands every night. There's food. It is just a fun experience.
What I would say, like how you kind of compared it to like a tailgate or a race or something. It's like that, but also we know the people. Like it's everybody from our
small
hometown.
Town, yeah.
So it's just like a nice cozy culture where we all kind of know each other and share this great moment together. I think that's what's really beautiful about it, and that's what I like most.
Well, yeah, and that's also like a lot of friends, especially being in college. You got a lot of friends that come into town to come back home
just for the event.
Yeah, just for that. And you got people that used to live in Madison that live in another state. And next thing you know, they come back just for that, and I think it's
huge.
Yeah, it's just a big event. If you've never been, heck, I recommend you coming down and just buying it.
Yeah, so many people that I talk to are like, oh, we always avoid that. It's like, really? Like, they think they won't like it, but anybody that I've ever convinced to go down there, they usually say they like it.
Yeah, and then, yes, it does get a little bit more different at night, I would say, but, I mean, the only time that I would go down there at night anyway is the fireworks. I think that's the only thing
They have cops, so.
Yes, I mean, it's a good time. And then, now, do you want to get into final words?
Yeah, I want to get into final words. I'll just say, stay on the brand. I'll say you gotta regatta.
Yeah, I mean,
keep it simple.
I'd say that's a good one. I'm gonna jump the other way. I'm gonna go back into sports. So Pacers sign someone well. Reds keep winning series, and then Yankees get Aaron Judge back. I'm just gonna keep it simple.
All right, I think that brings us to an end. We got a Q&A coming up next week when Jacob comes back. So yeah, be ready for that. Ask us some more questions. Hit the link in our profile on Instagram or the highlight. It should be in our link tree as well. Just drop us some questions. You can ask us anything. But yeah, that is it for this episode. And yeah, we will see you next time.
Peace.